What's up guys, Bloodshed here, bringing you the Barbarian, Frenzy, Speed, and Push build for Diablo 3, patch 2.6.8 in Season 20. Just recently we had a PTR patch update that changed the way the two-piece set functions and now works off freezes and fears. So you can do both or you can pick either one. I'm siding on the frozen camp since it's more of a control-based build and I don't have to worry about them running away from me as a melee. I didn't like the fear mechanic, and the frozen one's pretty cool. They also changed the 4-piece. Frenzy lasts twice as long, so it's really good for speeds to keep up in between packs and it doesn't drop off. It's not as hectic. It's a nice quality of life change. And the 6-piece hasn't got buffed as of yet, but we haven't got the final patch notes. I can see this getting a slight bump to bring it closer to Whirlwind Barb, but most builds aren't as strong as Whirlwind Barb, so that's another video entirely, I guess. Anyway, for the speed build, I like Echoing Fury for the movement speed, the attack speed. We're a generator build, so we're attacking fast, hitting hard, and I'm going to demonstrate both builds in this video as well. We're killing things at lightning speed, so Messerschmitt is giving us tons of cooldown to keep up Wrath the Berserker, and Bastion's Revered we need for the Frenzy set. I do like Ingiam. It feels like I'm double dipping with Ingiam and Echoing Fury, but if you've ever done group runs with Demon Hunters, Monks, Whirlwind Barbs, they're fast, and I think Ingiam is needed just to stay up and keep pace with them. I was getting less than 2-minute runs on like a T16 with this build, and everything that we're using today is on the PTR test server. So I have, 800 Paragon. You can see I'm not using my other Paragon. My gem levels are 86 and 84, no augments, right? Nothing too ridiculous. So it's like a realistic testing that you would have early season. It depends on how much you play, right? Some people don't play that much. Some people play too much, like me. But this is like a nice metric to go off of and to gauge where the builds are in terms of power. All the build links will be in the description down below, but you can print the screen if you like. This is mostly geared toward speed and utility, and I'll show you right here. This is perfect since I don't have any keystones either. But yeah, you just pop all your buffs. That is your Battle Rage, your War Cry, and you want to hit enemies with Falter, but it's not necessary. You can actually swap this out with Sprint or even another skill if you like, and then pop Wrath the Berserker. You charge in, and I'm using the Cold Rune. And that's why Ingiam synergizes really well, because when I kill an elite, I have perma charges for 10 seconds. Now that the 2-piece scales off freeze, as soon as I charge in, they're frozen for 2.5 seconds, and they're taking double damage for all my hits. It's really fun play style, and I can get behind this for sure. This might be my hardcore main next season, so I'm excited to play Frenzy. But you can see we're just tapping and everything's dying, right? Tap, 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 and then when you freeze, they take that double burst damage from that. Here's a charge, and you get your Ingiam, and then, it's just actually crazy deep. Like, you wouldn't think Frenzy is a fast build on paper, and now that we have Ingiam, we can go around, and then in between packs, we still have that Echoing Fury buff. And I'm glad that this was a bad rift, because it gave you an idea what it would function like, Whirlwind will probably be slightly faster still, and especially for bounties, but you could use this and it's very serviceable, and it's respectable, man. I like this build. Like I said, we're getting less than 2-minute clears on average, and I think this kind of shows you just popping things. And well, I let my buff fall off there. Okay, nice open map. You can kind of see me buzz the enemies down. And let me go. Let's clear this out a little bit. Charge in and let it rip. If there's any changes significantly, I'll put it in the description of the guide. But I don't expect anything to change this late in the PTR. If anything, it's just going to be like a numerical buff, here, we just delete. Less than 10,000 main stat. We actually have 8 or 7,500 main stat. It's just the Rampage gives us a stacking strength increase. Let's see when it falls off here. Yeah, I have 7,000 main stat, right? So it's super low bar, and I think you guys will really like this build, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with it as well. Port around, freeze them. That is a one swing right there. I like it. I don't know. I like the new sets, and I think they could be better, but I'm overall really happy with them right now, and I can't wait to play them next season. Yeah, let's jump back into town and talk about the build a little bit more for the push version. For the Frenzy build, the push build, it has similar mechanics where we're freezing them. The way we're freezing them though is still with Furious Charge Cold Rush. You want to keep this up for Bandamite, but it gives you a 2.5 second freeze on demand. So it's really awesome. And I'm using Azarath, so we get a boost to cold damage, and that synergizes with our sidearm frenzy skill. Even though we get all the runes, we're going to be focusing on sidearm. The Azarath can roll up to 25% chance to freeze, and that's pretty much all you need. You can see how fast we're attacking, like lightning speed. So that's plenty to keep them frozen. Enemies will eventually get diminishing returns on them where you can't keep freezing them forever. So it's like more freezing won't even help us that much, in my opinion. But you could get it on the belt. It's pretty easy to get on the belt, you know, especially if you get a belt with Frenzy on it. Typically belts will have double main stat. And if you get a Frenzy as a natural roll, you can roll Freeze. Or if you just happen to get Freeze on it, you can roll Frenzy. But that's something to think about. At least for speeds, you can do that. Not necessary, but a nice little touch. So you can get 5% here. So that could be 30% total with those two. If you do want to get on the helm, you can actually get 5% fear on the helmet. So here's what it looks like on the helm. Up to 5.1 chance to fear. And of course you can get it on weapons if you're lucky enough. You can get crowd control on weapons. So helm, belt, and weapons, look for fear and freeze only. As far as I could tell, it doesn't work the same way with stuns, but what freeze does work with is Parthan defenders. So you're more than welcome to use Mortix Brace in the build if you like. You get all the runes, the damage reduction, the AoE clear. It's really good to use Mortix Brace. I prefer Parthan defenders though. You can get up to 12% for each enemy stunned. It also again works with freezes, and we're constantly freezing and doing like, you know, you charge into like a bunch of mobs, you're getting like, you know, 50, 60, 70 damage reduction with a big enough charge. So you want to charge through them. So like if I was fighting Tyrael here and I want to switch targets, I can travel through them, start DPSing, and everything's frozen. And you get a huge burst of damage reduction right when you enter a pack and start DPSing. It's a nice way to get your character attacking and get ahead of the damage before the incoming damage comes, right? And then you can again freeze. It's like a giant cone when you charge. And eventually things will get DR'd. You can go to another pack over here, work on them a little bit, and just kind of, you can pretty much face tank it, but just so you know, eventually they're gonna get diminishing returns and you might have to switch targets at a super high level. And I really like this version of the build. It's not necessarily the taunt version I wanted, but it's a really good option. And you know, freezing enemies, barbarians are from the frozen north of Sescheron. It does kind of fit thematically, at least, and I think it's kind of cool, pun intended. We're using Threatening Shout Falter to get double the effect. The 2-piece bonus doubles the effect of shouts. So the enemies are taking 50% more damage. We're getting double War Cry. We're getting 60% dodge. Battle Rage, Bloodshed. We're getting nice AoE clear with that. 40% of your recent crit to all enemies within 20 yards. Wrath of Berserker isn't up a lot with this build. You can use Messer here if it really bothers you. If you use Messer here, and you use Wrath of Berserker, then make sure you use Mortix because it'll all synergize. I prefer the consistency of the freeze. I'm always going to freeze, which means I'm always getting some type of, you know, effect use out of my bracers. It's never like a dead time really with the bracers. And this is like a nice DPS burst that I use. And I'm still using Boonable Kathos to lower the cooldown by 30 seconds. Also, if you feel like you don't need the tankiness, you can drop Superstition or Berserker Rage. That really works pretty well. I like Nerves of Steel, especially on hardcore. Ruthless is amazing. And yeah, everything else we talked about here, how it works. Let me jump into a map again, 800 Paragon, no funny business. I've been doing this a long time and I try to give you guys the most realistic type of testing I can. That way, when you play a character, you can see how bad this Compass Rose is, and you know what I mean? And like, yeah, this not best in slot and stuff like that. Anyway, let's do like, I think I did like a 113 earlier today. I'll just do a 110 on stream. We'll pop our buffs. And I won't pop Rad the Berserker right away. And it's easier to keep up your Frenzy, remember, so just kind of tap it as you're running by mobs. I'm gonna pop Rad the Berserker just to run faster, just to get to an elite. Yeah, here we go. So I'm gonna start DPSing here. I'm a Threatening Shout. As soon as it's up, I'm gonna charge in, get into the Oculus Ring, and we're just gonna start slapping them up, dude. I mean, this is basically like a Hoda Barb, but with a little bit more frenzy flavor. And when your COE cycle hits, yeah, you want to make sure you're ready for it. Illusionist mobs are a little tough sometimes, depending if they're ranged like this. But you can see, like, we're basically really tanky, and what I would consider a tanky build. Not everyone considers this tanky, but the fact that I can just sit here and I sat in Arcane Beams. Like, I had to move right there, right? I've sat in Arcane Beams before, and I was able to heal through it. I recommend getting Life on Hit on one of your items, as I think it's really important. I have Wrath the Berserker, so I could stand in the Frozen Pulse right there. So you can see the first lead kill, we came out ahead. Our wave clear is pretty solid too. Hopefully I come across some... Okay, that's some good density right here. Jump in. Remember to pop Threatening Shout. You could just number lock Threatening Shout, probably. They're all literally frozen right now. And I can charge when it's up, and they're still frozen basically. So you're not, even though there wasn't that much of a damage reduction increase, the fact that we're freezing is really helping. And we have that cheat death if things get a little dicey. I'm gonna move back in to the Oculus Ring and just slap them. We're just slapping them up, right? Look at 7,400 strength. And we're just smacking around a 110. I think the build's better than a lot of people give it credit for. I could see people pushing into like the 135 to 140 range with it. Like Whirlwind Barb's definitely in the 140 range, and Frenzy's definitely in the 135, like the 135 and higher type of range. So definitely, this will probably be my main next season, honestly. I like the build. It's chill. I can play it on hardcore. And you could make it a little bit tankier if you wanted, especially early on with like an extra unity. Like I just stood in an explosion right there. I'm standing in explosions like crazy. You can make it tankier with a unity, or you can drop COE and you have a whole item. You can use a weapon, a ring slot. If you want to use Echoing Fury because you like to fear more, that's cool. I just prefer the freeze mechanic. You can take this build and convert it to a fear version easily. Just drop Azarath and add Echoing Fury. The seasonal theme adds a lot of variations, and I can see myself like really tinkering with it throughout the season. So again, check the description for the latest version. Here's some Arcane Beams, because you know I might tweak it a little bit here and there. I might change my mind and make the build better or worse. Let's kind of pull him out a little bit. Oh, he's a Juggernaut. Okay. Well, fighting a Juggernaut's important too. We normally would skip these. Standing in beams. I want to fight our way out of it. It's important to see like how powerful it is if you can kill a Juggernaut. Our single target's incredible. You won't have any problems with the Rift Guardian. I haven't had any issues, really. He's really hiding behind these beams. He's trying to make it difficult for us. I haven't had any issues. We're using Stricken. You could probably use a different gem and drop Stricken if you save a pylon, if you want to go really sweaty, and I might have to stand in this. Let's see what happens. You could probably do that. I like Stricken just because I like to know when I get to the Rift Guardian, it's not going to be this huge thing that I need to fish for. There's so much fishing in Rifts already. He's really hiding in this, so this is a good test of the tankiness. You kind of have to play around the beams a little bit. You can't just directly stand in them, but look at this guy. I'm going to stand in that. Ooh, we got procced. And I might get him before he kills me. Okay, we just barely came out with our life there. It just shows you, I mean, just taking on Juggernauts, playing double Dutch with Arcane Beams. The freeze adds a really nice change of pace. I think there's more effective uptime on our double damage from our two-piece than there was before. Sometimes you would use Echoing Fury and they'd run away from you, or it wouldn't proc as much, or things like that. So now I feel like it's just we have way more uptime and the extra damage is noticeable. I still think it needs a slight buff, but it's mostly because Whirlwind Barb is so powerful. If you compare this with like Seismic Slam and Leapquake, it's like pretty much in line with the other barb builds. So we'll see what happens in the future with Whirlwind Barb and things like that. But let's go ahead and get back to town and wrap up any extra tips and tricks I have for you guys. Also, if you're playing on hardcore, you might want to use the Guild set. That might give you a little bit extra bulkiness as well. You can wear the bracers and the shoulders, or the bracers and the chest piece. And then you wouldn't use COE, you would use like Ring of Royal Grandeur to tie the sets together. And that would make you like a Impale Demon Hunter, and you go from like elite to elite and just be like an elite hunter. And you'd really dominate the Rift Guardian. So there's just some options for you if you're looking at another way. Eventually, if I get too squishy or whatever when I'm pushing, I might look into that for hardcore specifically. So I might make some notes in the guide, or you'll have this video here for you. But again, any changes I'm going to update. If you go to my Patreon page, patreon.com/bloodshed, I have a whole library of builds there. We're constantly tweaking them throughout the PTR and adding to them. I'm going to probably have to refilm my Witch Doctor video because they changed the mechanics of Ring of Emptiness, and I don't want like misinformation out there. So I might do that. So you might see that soon. Another Witch Doctor speed build that is even better, stronger than it was before. Shout out to all the patrons, the Twitch subs, anyone that supports the content, likes my videos, likes my Diablo fan guides. It's appreciated to know that you guys like the content that we're putting out. That's going to be all for me today. This is the Bloodshed, and I'm out of here. Peace.